Does anyone notice that in Big Brother, female empowerment almost always leads to putting up only women? Maybe it means something different than I think it does. Hello everyone, I'm Dan the Man. Well, like most people, I was thinking this might be a boring and ultimately pointless week since whoever was voted out was probably going to come right back in. But boy was I wrong. First off, as we saw at the beginning of the episode, Sam won the head of household competition. Sam was the likely one to win this one, but I was sure JC had this one in the bag. Those kinds of endurance competitions almost always favor women or smaller guys with small feet. So I figured JC had this one easily. He seemed secure, but he got too comfortable and slipped up, and blew what may be the only head of household he was likely to win. After that, Sam and Kaitlyn, being the smallest, had the best chances to win to me. And while Kaitlyn gave it a good try, she could not hold out, although I'm guessing now she wishes she had. Tyler, Kaycee, and Sam were the final three on those tree stumps, but I don't think Kaycee and Tyler were ever intending to win. They knew Sam's head of household meant whoever went up would probably come back in, so winning head of household was just going to make them enemies at a week likely no one went home, and then leave them helpless to compete for head of household next week when it mattered. The reason they both hung on so long is because Kaitlyn was still on, and she was an unpredictable wild card. Heck, for all Tyler knew, everyone had figured out he turned on Kaitlyn's side of the house, and she would be gunning for him. As we saw, once Kaitlyn was out, Kaycee couldn't fall off fast enough. Tyler stayed on, but given that Kaycee and Kaitlyn dropped off seconds apart from each other, it would have looked fishy if he immediately fell too. He clearly wanted to make a deal with Sam for appearances, but Sam honestly has no idea how to play this thing for the most part. Instead of making a deal to keep safe the guy she never had any intention of putting up anyway, she screamed like a maniac and demanded he step down. So Tyler just sort of got her to make a deal and then fell before she slipped by accident, and he was in a bad spot. Now, as I said, Kaycee and Tyler knew whoever went up likely wouldn't go home, but so did one other person, Sam. So why did Sam not throw it too? Because she definitely should have. Honestly, I have no idea. She said she wanted to have control over who the power app applied to, but I don't get why. Whoever went home was still going to go up on the block, so she would have been better to let someone else tick people off for an ultimately fruitless head of household. Now, as we saw, someone did in fact go home, more on that later, but the fact Big Brother botched their plan to have someone come back in doesn't mean it was a good move for Sam, just that it mostly worked out anyway, although it's too soon to see the long-term effects. But smart or not, Sam won head of household and proceeded to have one of the dumbest head of household runs I've seen in a long time. First off, after winning head of household, Sam decided to lock the door and keep people out unless they requested a one-on-one. Yes, you're allowed to do that, that's why there's a lock on the door, but in modern Big Brother it can rub people the wrong way. That alone probably won't get her gone, but it was not a good game move anyway. Then she totally shut out anyone's opinion. Her mind was made up and no one was going to talk about it, and she wasn't saying nothing about who was going home to nobody. The people working with Sam, aka Level 6, saved her because she had a power which is over after this week. She needs to make inroads and try to make deals, but she did nothing to make anyone feel involved or even safe they weren't going up, and she shut them all down. That doesn't scream of a good alliance member if they're leaving you in the dark and won't even let you know if you're safe. Nothing wrong with having your mind made up, but it's a good game move to at least humor the people you're working with. It comes off power hungry, and it did nothing to make anyone think she was good for an alliance that she's now going to need more than ever. And then there were the nominations. Oh my holy BB gods, those nominations. Sam knew that whoever was voted out was probably going back in, so the smart thing to do would be to not tick them off too much. Heck, even if one of them went home, you still have someone else to contend with. But Sam decided to make it personal and basically called Kaitlyn and Hayleigh whores. Yes, she didn't use those exact words, but when you attack how they are flaunting themselves and using their wiles to manipulate guys, and it is the opposite of female empowerment, because of course Big Brother is all about representing feminist ideals. That's the point of the game after all, right? And so that was why she was putting them up. What the actual hell? Now, while I don't agree with her stance at all, she has a right to her opinion and a right to not like Hayleigh and Kaitlyn. They're not the most likable people in the world, and especially in the beginning they weren't real nice to her, so she doesn't have to like them, fair enough. I also think given how the house dynamics were and that the power would be used, Hayleigh and Kaitlyn were the smart choices to put up. But Sam could have said it was because they hadn't gotten along. She could have stopped at the not contributing part she gave in her speech. She could have said it was strategy. She could have said she flipped a coin. She could have said all kinds of things that may not have been sincere, but game-wise would have likely upset them less. But instead, she ticked off both of them. She ticked off Fessy and thus made 3 enemies on a week she knew none of them might go home. She made everyone feel bad for them because, as we saw, no one, and I mean no one, was backing her claim or sharing her opinion. It possibly made people think she wasn't the sweet ingenue she was playing and turned a lot of the fans on her to boot. She had been a lock for America's favorite house guest, and while a lot of people do still support her, I don't think she's the lock she was before to win that. And as the Fessy thing showed in the episode, she was not above getting her hands all over guys herself. And that was not the only time she went and kept touching Fessy even after he stopped hugging her, so people who want to say he was the one who initiated that, it's not really true. And he did admit on the feeds that he was doing it to help play her. And you know why Sam didn't see that as a problem? Because people have asked her before about the guys being flirty and touchy-feely. Her empowered female opinion on that? Boys can't help themselves, so it's okay. And yes, she did say that. But all that aside, Sam's nominations were just plain horrible moves from a personal level and from a game level. It was unnecessary and did way more harm than good, and while it's too soon to tell, and she may have lucked out that Kaitlyn actually ended up going home, but it was not a smart move. Which brings us to the veto. And I'll get to Sam's dumb moves on the veto in a minute, but don't think she was alone in idiotic moves this week. Because now that I'm up to the veto, it brings me to Fessy. Poor Fessy. For one thing, once his name got picked to play in the veto competition, he should have thrown it. 100% there was no upside of him winning that veto. I respect he's competitive, but he knew if he won it, both Hayleigh and Kaitlyn would expect him to use it, and sure enough, that's what happened. Now, given he wasn't smart enough to throw the veto competition, he should have never promised both of them he was going to use it. Once he did that, he was a liar no matter what happened. It was just a matter of who he was lying to. It was no surprise he used it on Hayleigh, but had he used it on Kaitlyn, Hayleigh would have been the one mad at him, so he was damned if he did and damned if he didn't. He should have said he wasn't sure, or he was going to do what he thought was best for keeping them both, or something else less committed. I think Kaitlyn would have been mad at him no matter what he said, because she's Kaitlyn, but she would have at least lost the high ground at that point. I felt bad for him, especially since at the time I thought no one was going home, and he was tormented for ultimately nothing, but he made his bed, and he's lucky it didn't bite him in the butt more than it did. But he did win the veto, and he took off Hayleigh, and it came time for Sam to pick a replacement nominee. As with their votes, Sam would not tell who she was putting up, which had everyone panicked. No one felt safe, which was once again a bad game move because that meant the people she was working with also didn't feel safe when she should have made them feel safe. Then she decided to put up JC, but panicked at the actual last second when JC got upset and went the easy way. She honestly never should have wanted to put up JC in the first place. Not sure he wouldn't have been voted out if she had, although probably not. But she preached she was no coward and that she would not take the easy way out, and then blatantly chickened out and took the easy way out. Because why be a hypocrite only one time? I will say I was surprised how BB edited all this. When this week started, I was sure Big Brother was going to protect how Sam looked in the show. A lot of the live feed viewers were livid with her arguably unnecessarily judgmental nature and mean-spiritedness, but Big Brother clearly was wanting her to be the female Donnie. But they, to their credit, gave a fairly accurate portrayal of how Sam acted this week. A lot of casual fans turned on Sam, which I knew would happen if they did accurately show her behavior. She's still popular, don't get me wrong. A lot of fans have also defended her behavior this week, possibly more than condemned it, but they were given a more or less accurate depiction of what happened to make that decision. Big Brother didn't try to spoon-feed them that Sam was being a sweet girl all week. Of course, Sam shutting everyone down from strategy talk and being so secretive gave Big Brother less to work with, but I really thought they were going to try. So on to the nominations. Faysal, or rather the former Faysal, pretty much wanted Kaitlyn out over Rockstar, and who could blame them? Kaitlyn turned on them, which they now knew and was unreliable, not loyal and flighty. Level 6, however, was very undecided. Rockstar was no friend of theirs, particularly the guys and mostly Brett, and Kaitlyn, while flighty, had been someone they could control most of the time and who had usually gone with what they wanted. So they at first were on board with keeping Kaitlyn and sending Rockstar home. But as we saw, that didn't happen. For one thing, they tried to sway JC, and I honestly don't know how they thought that JC would be on board. He spent all week campaigning to get Kaitlyn on the block and pressured Fessy the whole time he had the veto not to pull Kaitlyn off. He wanted her out bad, so not sure why Tyler or anyone else ever thought he would be on board. I think Tyler specifically overestimates how good he is at swaying people. And sure enough, JC wasn't swayed. But level 6 was still sticking to their guns, and they actually found a savior in Bayleigh. I don't know if her loyalty was faltering or if for once she just wanted to be on the right side of the vote, but she spent the week, especially after veto, cozying up to level 6, and she said she'd vote however they wanted. So why didn't Rockstar go home if they had the votes? Well, Angela and Rachel showed they can think for themselves after all, and we haven't seen any of this, but Rockstar has been pushing hard for an all-girls alliance. I don't think much is going to come of it, as she can't win or influence anyone, but one thing was clear. If she did somehow win head of household, she was almost surely not going to put up a girl. And 3 out of the 5 remaining members of level 6 are girls. So they made the right conclusion that it might not be smart to leave up a flighty wild card who would do whatever the boys wanted over someone who was almost surely not going to put any of them up. Yeah, if Rockstar by some miracle won, Tyler and Brett were most likely going to go up, but if those girls actually want to win, it isn't really smart to take those guys to the final 4, so better to leave the ones who might take out their allies over the ones who might take them out instead. So they made the push to vote out Kaitlyn. Brett, well, not really thrilled, wasn't actually that big on keeping Kaitlyn, so he was willing to go along with it. And Tyler was not thrilled at all with that development and tried to change their mind, because as we have seen, Kaitlyn usually does whatever he says specifically. But ultimately, he couldn't change their mind, as Kaitlyn's staying benefited him more than any of the other level 6 members, so he finally recanted. I think he gave up as soon as he did, thinking Kaitlyn would stay anyway, but not sure he would have changed their minds even if he had kept trying. So as we saw, Kaitlyn was voted out. But as we all knew was coming, and everyone in the house knew was coming, Kaitlyn had a chance to win her way back in. Now we all saw the puzzle, and I know what I was thinking, what everyone else was thinking, what my cats were thinking. And that is, a 6-piece puzzle in 2.5 minutes? No way Kaitlyn is not getting this one. I'm sure production also thought that, but we all found out what happens when you assume. The puzzle was easy, but Kaitlyn panicked. She was thrown off by that one piece for the knee, and then she made a bad decision to put the puzzle together on the floor and lift it up, which she couldn't do, largely because Kaitlyn was so small that puzzle was basically life-size. And then she basically gave up. And I wish I could have been a fly on the wall in the control room when Kaitlyn lost, because I can guarantee you that was not supposed to happen. Now it's easy to attack her for blowing such an easy puzzle, and I've no doubt it was easy by design. Big Brother wanted to give the illusion it could go either way, but give her more than enough time to get in. They planned for someone to come back in. So a lot are attacking her for losing such a hand-delivered challenge, and while I'm sure Big Brother did a test run with someone or multiple people doing that challenge and added what they were sure was more than enough time based on that. But they didn't count on the fact that it was a stressful situation and the person who had to put the puzzle together might panic and blow it. I'm not sure in that situation I wouldn't have messed up, honestly, as I don't do stress well. And while I wouldn't go so far as to say they all would have blown it, I'm not convinced she's the only one in that house who would have failed the challenge under those conditions. So while I don't really like Kaitlyn, I do feel bad for her. She's likely going to think back on that moment and what it might have cost her for a long time. Although Kaitlyn's already being unnecessarily attacked by fans on social media for her behavior in the house and having them try to ruin her business as well as her life, so given she would have likely gone in again in a week or two anyway, she's probably better off having not come back in and potentially made all of that even worse. Although people trying to ruin Kaitlyn's life because she was annoying and cheated on her boyfriend who they don't even know, and for all they know cheated on her 10 times before that, really need to find something else to do and rethink their lives, because that's a horrible way to spend your time. So that brings me to the votes. Was Kaitlyn the right choice? Pretty much. Don't know what was up with JC. I assume he just wanted to create paranoia and figured he's the last one anyone would suspect. But for everyone else, she was pretty much the right vote. Kaitlyn was flighty and unpredictable and had no loyalty, so no one could truly trust her. Yes, she arguably was less likely to put up level 6 than Rockstar, but as noted, Rockstar was likely only going to go after the guys, so only Tyler and Brett benefited from Rockstar going home. And Rockstar was a lot less likely to win ahead of household going forward than Kaitlyn anyway. So definitely the best choice. There was some risk if she came back in she might go after some of them, which they lucked into not being an issue, but it was still a better choice for most of them over Rockstar, who also would have gone after people if she had come in. We didn't see the head of household because the show was supposed to end with Kaitlyn coming back in, hence why they didn't do the interviews, but as we know, I had the feeds, so I know who won. So if you don't want to know who won the head of household, stop now. Really, stop now. Last chance. Bayleigh won the head of household. A very good thing is with her power she could theoretically control the next 2 nominations, which would give her a big advantage in the game. It also prevents her from having to use it for at least another week. I already know who Bayleigh's going to put up as I make this recording, so I'm not really going to speculate, but it should be an interesting week, as unlike some, Bayleigh's nominations are far from obvious, as are who she put up as a replacement nominee and it should be another wild week in the house. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell for notifications. I'll be back next week for my thoughts on the nominations, Veto, who goes home, and anything else that could happen that week. I'm Dan the Man, and I'll see you next time.